Welcome, brothers and sisters, to the Meher Baba program. I'm Fred Stankus, along with my co-host Suhas Ginde. Welcome, Suhas.
Thank you, Fred.
And today is part 2 of last week's program. We were reading from this treasure of a book, Meher Baba Calling. It has about 70 or 80 messages that were compiled from Meher Baba's discourses, and also birthday messages, and also from the highest of the high. And they're short paragraphs, but in the words are just, gems. And so we'll begin at number 5.
Number 5 says, understand my ways. Baba goes on and says, if I am beyond the level of an ordinary human being, and much beyond the level of saints and yogis, then I must be the highest of the high. In which case, to judge me with your human intellect and limited mind, and to approach me with mundane desires would not only be the height of folly, but sheer ignorance as well. Because no amount of intellectual gymnastics could ever understand my ways or judge my infinite state. If I'm the highest of the high, my will is law. My wish governs this law, and my love sustains the universe. Whatever your apparent calamities and transient sufferings, they are but the outcome of my love for the ultimate good. Therefore, to approach me for deliverance from your predicaments, to expect me to satisfy your worldly desires, would be asking me to do the impossible, to undo what I've already ordained.
My gosh, that message is so strong, because he's saying that if you are going through a calamity or suffering, he has ordained that to maybe wake you up from your ignorance of who you are.
Or your slumber.
Or your slumber. Your slumber in the world, believing that this is it. How many people that you know that think the world itself is the real thing?
A lot of them.
Most of us do, don't we?
Yes.
And
we get caught up into the ephemeral. And Baba says all this is tamasha, or farce, meaning it's an illusion. No different than if you went to a movie and then you came out of it and say, oh, that was a movie. It's giving you an analogy.
And so he is speaking from the highest of the highest point of view.
This is also an excerpt.
And so, I mean, this is a very, very, strong message, and it's also a very poignant message. Basically saying, if I am the highest of the high, why would I give you things that bind you in the illusion? I'm going to take them from you so you can know yourself. Because I guess, as we've talked about in previous programs, once you gain that bliss, it never leaves you. While things of the world, your pleasures and finances and money may be,
transitory.
Yeah. Well, you think you're well off, but eventually you lose it.
I mean, recently we had some flooding and rain, heavy rains in the Midwest.
Yes.
So many people lost their houses, homes,
Exactly.
their possessions. We've had fires in Southern California. How many people have lost everything, even their memories? They've lost photographs,
Exactly.
albums, money, food, clothes. They start with nothing, they start all over again. And so life goes on. But the main thing I wanted to say was, you said something, it may come to me.
Well, I could go.
Baba has said that he never leaves us. He's one with us on every level. It is we who have to make that link with him. Baba never leaves his creation. Or you might say the messiahs or the previous avatars, their energy, that consciousness, never, it's part of creation. So it's already there. We have to connect with that consciousness through him. He's the medium. That's why he said in the previous program, he says, focus on me, that worry not, think of me constantly, because that establishes a link between you and the master, between you and the avatar. And so all these ephemeral things, then you lose your attachment to them. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that's how you get back on track to getting back to who you really are, getting back to the garden, as they say.
Well, this next
Garden of Eden, of paradise.
This next message, number 6, become mine, almost goes along the same theme.
Okay.
I have come down from the highest to your level. So take me to be yours, and naturally and automatically you become mine. If you are poor, take me to be poor. If you are rich, take me to be rich. If you are illiterate, take me to be illiterate. If you are literate, take me to be literate. I have come down to your level, and if on that level you take me with all your heart, if you love me with all your heart, you will come to my real level of the highest, because I am in all. You can know me as one of you and one in you only when the veils of separateness are lifted. And this can be done if you love me honestly and wholeheartedly. When I drop my body, I will remain in all who love me. I never die. Love me, obey me, and you will find me. So, basically, in Baba's life, as we have, read or discussed in the past, when he would be with the poor, he was one of them. And then he'd be with scholars and wealthy, and he was one of them. But he never, ever, took a aloof position, like saying, you know who I am? In fact, you were talking earlier about the way you traveled in India, third class. And I think Baba sort of liked to do that.
Baba always went by local transport.
Yeah. He'd want to be with the people.
He was with the people. He traveled by the lowest class on the trains, third class, for
to save money, one thing, to be industrious.
But the only people who were uncomfortable were the Mandali, his disciples, because they had to put up with the suffering.
Right.
He was aloof. He was beyond suffering.
Yeah, to be in the cram quarters with a packed train or bus.
Exactly. But when he says at the end, when I drop my body, I will remain in all who love me. I never die. The I never die is not the physical body. It's the I am, his divinity. His I am consciousness never dies. I have to make that differentiation. Love me, obey me, and you will find me. That means love what I stand for. And then you'll become one with me. And that is the shortcut that I was talking about. Is you bypass all these lifetimes that you have to be reborn over and over again. And
one thing I wanted to interject here, I'm thinking now as a viewer, watching and hearing these messages we're conveying. What if they say, I'm a devout Catholic, or a Christian, or I'm maybe a Islam, a person following Muhammad, or I'm a Buddhist, or I mean, who am I loving here? This Meher Baba is saying that he's God. But at the same time, I consider my Messiah as God. So in a way, can a person who is a devout follower of their path?
Baba has said you don't have to change your religion. Baba has said that if you are born into a Catholic or a Christian family or a Muslim family or a Hindu family, be a good Muslim, be a good Christian, be a good Hindu. You certainly don't lose anything by following Baba, because it enhances who you already are. And as you know, his followers were from all the faiths.
Exactly.
He had followers who were Christians, he had followers who were Muslim, and in their faith, they only believe in Allah, the one God. and they do not believe in images or idols and so on. And then for them to even accept Baba in the human form, God, that comes from a different source, usually probably Vedanta, that God does manifest in a human form, in the form of God in man. And Christ, well, Christians can become good Christians. They follow Baba has said every person should follow the tenets of his own faith, or follow a perfect master or an avatar, should he have the good fortune of coming in contact with such a person. Not everybody has the opportunity to come in contact with such a person because they're not ready.
So what you're saying then, the God-man in the last 100 years has walked the earth.
On this planet.
That was from 1894 when he was born, February 25th. And he dropped his physical form, as you say, dropping his body on January 31st, 1969. So in that 21st century, 20th century, I'm sorry, in the 20th century, he was on this planet.
That form, that God consciousness was in a human form in our lifetime.
And I mean, there has been some talk too that there's been basically inquiries about his status because messages have, I mean, there were actually people investigating him. I don't want to say what faiths they were, but they came in 1962 to the East-West gathering, a big darshan in Pune.
Yes.
And there was representatives from certain faiths who actually were curious about him because publicity got out. But also now in more current times, priests have actually made pilgrimages to his tomb while they're practicing ministers, because he is non-denominational in his symbol, the mastery and servitude symbol that we have seen, the Christian cross, the Star of David, the Zoroastrian flame, the Islamic moon, half moon, the Buddhist wheel, the Hindu sign, I call it. Those are all on his tomb in India, where his body rests at Meherabad. His tomb has the four sides,
the emblems
of the religions of the world. And so the idea of it is, he said, I've come not to teach, but to awaken.
Yeah, it's right here in the beginning.
Right, and to hear my call.
Before that, he said, I've come not to teach, but to awaken. And to awaken you from what? To awaken you from this ignorance in which the world is steeped in. Because they think that it is light, but it's a form of darkness.
So even when one practices rituals of a religion that is basically still steeped in this world, they don't realize who they are. They don't Baba says, I've come together to bring all religions together like beads on one string, revitalizing them for the benefit of all humanity, and a brotherhood forming in mankind, to where there's no divisions of religions or creeds, you see, to where people can recognize the divinity of each being with the understanding of the truth within each being. But of course, that's a golden age, isn't it?
Sure, and that may happen maybe within the next 100 years or so. We hope that that's what will happen.
You want to read the next number 7?
Okay, my commandments.
Oh, Jesus gave commandments.
Commandments of
Moses. Who gave the commandments? Moses?
God gave the 10 commandments through Moses for all mankind.
So these are Baba's commandments.
Baba has said the commandments were already inscribed in your heart from when you were born. You just have to live up to that. And Baba says, these are my commandments.
So these are Baba's commandments, and the number is very auspicious number, 7.
Desire for nothing except desirelessness. Hope for nothing except to rise above all hopes.
Okay, I'd like to stop you on each one if you'd make a comment. Or can you basically say, what does that mean?
It means basically desire for nothing except desirelessness. It means to be without desire. That's how you become one with God. You don't have any attachments. Hope for nothing except to rise above all hopes. Remember, one of the things when he went on the new life was to be hopeless and helpless.
Yes, but that sounds so weak.
But in a
hopeless and
way, it is
helpless.
strength because you're not depending on the external anymore. You're depending on your inner strength, your inner being. You're depending on God and God alone. And that's a direct connection.
I see. So in other words, you're not going to call on for financial aid
You're
from
not going to
from a
call on
partner.
Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe to bail you out. You're going to basically say that I trust God with my life and surrender to Him, and that He will
do what is best
and
for
it's not
me.
lip service, it really is from the heart.
And there are people who have done that. There are people like the Mandali, his disciples who gave everything and lived with him. And these people do exist. This is not a fairy story. You've met some of his disciples.
Of course I haven't.
And
like
they're exceptional people.
Eric, for instance,
Who was his interpreter.
Was so close to Baba. He passed on a couple years ago. But he was so unbelievably cordial to visitors and giving stories and embraces, part of a Meher Baba, a welcoming hug, Jai Baba. But when he was asked, I said to Erich, I ask you, do you want God realization? He said, no. He says, I want to be again with Baba when he comes back, 700 or 1400 years. The advent of avatars is usually that 700, 14, 2100 year cycles. He says, I want to be with him again.
And you asked me the same question in a previous program. Would you like $1 billion or God is? I said, neither. Because it's not up to me to ask for that. It's up to Baba to give that gift. It's a gift of grace. So the only way you can get God realization is to be without any kind of a desire, not even wanting it, because wanting means you're lacking.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing to hear that.
Because when you want something, you're lacking in
that's right.
what is needed or necessary. You still have the desire.
Well, I've read in some of Baba's other messages in the past or stories about how some people in the most, unaware times got God realization. One man was sitting on a toilet stool.
Upasni Maharaj, his master, received God realization when he was answering the call of nature.
Yes.
Baba said that in
right. But I mean,
Frederick.
he wasn't thinking about it.
No, it's when you least expect it. Baba wasn't thinking about it when he was given realization by his master.
He went to the woman.
She kissed him on the forehead, and in that instant, he got God realization. It wasn't like he was looking for it. He said, when I was a child, I was interested in games like flying kites, playing marble, playing cricket.
So you're saying one cannot sort of develop a seminar program for God realization?
No. And if they are, I think they're doing humanity a great disservice.
Next one.
And then it goes on, continues in the same vein.
Second commandment.
Want nothing and you will have everything. It's still coming from the same. Be angry with none but your own weaknesses. Hate none but your own lustful self. So these are the things you said to avoid is
want nothing and you will have everything. I guess that's true. You ever meet a wandering fellow sometimes, this maybe with a bedroll and a knapsack, maybe he's hitchhiking down Coast 1. He looks happy because he doesn't want anything. If you give him a ride, fine. If you don't get a ride, he keeps walking.
Well, there are people in India who have very little and they're very happy, as you may have noticed when you were there. And the people here have a lot of everything and they're miserable. I've seen people with no smiles on their face when they got
Well, I was just talking
possessions.
I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and he was saying he was at a social event where the quite wealthy were at Beverly Hills, and he said there was a man who came out in a wheelchair, and he looked at the man, and the man was worth, he said, not in the millions, in the billions. And he thought to himself, if I had the billions this man had, and the man is in a wheelchair, which he can't really enjoy the millions, I would be building schools and this and that, doing with the money, because I may not be able to enjoy my money personally, but I could see others. And he said, but how people get trapped in their lives thinking that wealth and power, just to know that they have it, is something that gives them this feeling of dominance or
Power?
It's intoxicating, I guess. But it was a good message to say that.
Well, intoxication is like attachment. They're attached
Right,
to their
right.
possessions. And they have to give that up someday. Why not do it while you're still alive?
Exactly.
Why give it up? You got to give it up anyway when you die.
Exactly. I mean, why not do something with it? Anyway, the next one.
Something for the good of all.
Right.
Be greedy to own more and more wealth of tolerance and justice.
That was what we just talked about. The next.
Wage war against your desires, and godhood will be your victory.
So the thing is, how do you wage war against your desires? Do you have to be hard on yourself? Do you have to be like St. Francis of Assisi, throwing himself into a rose bush, thorns, in order to, control?
Again, by focusing on Baba and his consciousness, these things, these desires, all they
So that's the way you wage war? Is by
It's not a war
focusing
where you're
on-
attacking.
No, but you're focusing, say your mind is permeated with these thoughts.
If you're absorbed in the consciousness of Baba on a daily basis, whether you get up in the morning and you spend a few minutes reading this, like you said you were, or whether you do it again at lunchtime or before you retire for the night, your mind is so saturated with Baba and his attributes, his qualities, his divinity, his love. You don't have time to think about how can you have two things occupying your mind at the same time. So one will displace the other. So it's called displacing your desire. You see?
So I see. You're not letting those other desires
They will
run
be
rampant. They're like an enemy coming in.
They will be on the back burner of your mind, and then when you don't give them full energy, they will dissolve and dissipate. You don't have the need to do those things. A transformation of consciousness takes place in you, the being.
Next.
It's not like you go to war with a
Right.
gun and
So, but you see though, but how people can basically
But that they're taking it
misinterpret,
literally,
exactly.
and that's not what he's talking about. Serve others with the understanding that in serving them, you are serving me.
Well, that's such a good message.
That is an essence of selfless service.
Well, that could
Karma yoga.
that almost could be underlined as Meher Baba's epitaph. You follow me?
Yes.
Because he said mastery and servitude. Serve others.
With the understanding that in serving them, you are serving me.
Wow.
So that's karma yoga.
That's a good example of that. What's that sister from Calcutta?
Mother Teresa.
Yeah, she would serve others and say, I see Jesus.
She was a saint.
Yeah, like she'd see a leper or somebody dying in the gutters of Calcutta.
She saw
would
the
say, remember?
divinity within the
Yes,
body.
he'd say, I want to die, you'd have that person die with dignity.
Yes.
Because he said, I see Jesus in this soul, not whatever the people are.
Not the leper.
Exactly. And she would say, I want that person. So she'd bring them to that home, and they would bathe and clean and feed.
But everybody does not see that. Only special people who have a certain sense of awareness and a heightened consciousness can see that. They see, the saint sees God in everything.
Yes, yes.
Everyone's not at that level.
It's almost like a pet lover who does rescue of dogs.
Yes.
They see the beauty of an animal, while others may think it's just a wild dog running around.
Because they don't have that
Right,
sense.
but a pet lover, a rescue person, boy, they are just totally passionate about what they do.
And there are some people who have the same thing towards people. And there's some towards
Yeah.
fish. You know, they say whales.
Exactly.
The sea lions.
Exactly, the
that get
Greenpeace
sick.
people and so
Yes.
forth. Wow, that's wonderful. So the next,
And then he says, be resigned completely to my will, and my will be yours. What I was saying earlier, when you focus on Baba, you do God's will, or Baba's will. Try as close as you can. But by focusing on him, you lose your limited individual self. You try to do a greater good for the people, for humanity at large, if you can, if you're able to. See what I'm saying? Be resigned completely to my will, and my will be yours. And finally he says, let your temptation be to tempt me with your love in order to receive my grace.
how can you tempt him?
By loving him more and more. By loving
But how
God.
can he give you that attention? How many souls are in the world?
No.
Trillions of
You're
souls.
giving him the attention and you have a one-to-one relationship with him no matter where you are.
How can it be?
It is the way it is. You have a direct link with Baba, whoever you are and wherever you are.
How can he know you are feeling that way?
He knows. Because he knows each and everything that's going on in the universe. We don't. We have a limited mind. He has a universal mind, a universal body, a universal subtle body. He knows. I mean, you know, I was talking to Kathy the other day, and she knows when Baba comes and goes within her being, and she's been suffering. She knows when Baba comes, she feels tears coming out of her eyes, and when he goes away, she can sense that he's leaving her presence. Some people feel that presence in them. How do they know? He knows. No different than if I were to use an analogy from the New Testament. There was a lady who had the issue of blood, and she said to her, if I can only touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be made whole. This woman approached Jesus. He was in a crowd of people. She crawled underneath and touched the hem of his garment. What Baba calls this daman, hold on to my daman, at the hem of his garment. And that instant, she was healed. She had an issue of blood. She had been to so many doctors and spent all her money. And she said to herself, if I can but touch the hem of his garment, and you may have read the story.
Oh, no, that's yeah.
I know I will be made whole. She knew that she would be healed. And Jesus turned around and said, who touched me? Because he felt that energy going out of him. He asked his disciples, who touched me? He turns around and his disciples said, well, you're in the middle of a crowd. How can you say who touched you? A lot of people are touching. He said it was not like everybody touching me. This was a special touch and I felt it. I'm just trying to illustrate.
I see what you're saying. You actually are like a ready receiver because of your opening your...
He sensed that that woman was there for one reason only, because then he turned around to her and she came up to him and said, I touched you, and she was afraid that she did something that she wasn't supposed to do, and he told her, your faith has made you whole. And Baba himself has said, I do not do miracles, but it's the faith of people in me or in my ability or in the love of me that makes things happen for them.
On that note, till next time, as MeherBaba says,
I'm just going to say this, love God with all your heart.
Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.